Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a special guest, Shana Cosgrove. Shana is not only a founder and CEO of one, but two tech companies, Nyla Technology Solutions and VitalUP Marketing. She's also sits on a couple different boards, Fort Meade Alliance, Downtown Baltimore Family Alliance, and she's won numerous awards and honors in the DC, Maryland area. Some of them being the Washington Technology Fast 50. She's also been in the Inc. 5000 fastest growing private company and the Baltimore Business Journal Top 10 Tech Award. And she's also been named as the top workplaces to work in 2017 for the Baltimore Sun. So welcome to the show, Shana. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks. I'm blushing now.
I'm sure that didn't do justice. I'm sure there's a lot more.
Well, that's a pretty good surface.
Thank you. So we can get started, I guess, from the very beginning. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Sure. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My dad is a mechanical engineer who ended up studying or being a specialist in steel plants, overseeing steel. So he worked for a company for a long time in Pittsburgh, overseeing a lot of installation and use of steel all over the world. And so my father's an engineer, and I was raised with two sisters and told I could do anything I ever wanted. I took a couple programming classes throughout the years. And for those of you listening that are younger than me, when I graduated college, the web browser was barely a thing. So I didn't even get to go off to college with a laptop. That was like a total luxury laptop was extremely expensive. So my third year, I finally got a computer. But I just kind of decided, so there weren't really computer science classes. You did some programming, maybe. We had a Commodore 64 at home that I played with, and I wrote with the paper that had the dots on the side that you had to rip off and pull together.
Was that unusual as far as having that in your home? Or did I'm sure not many of your friends had that, right? Or
I would say, probably half high school. By high school had it. It was like the Atari was out. And this was actually still in the days when our computer used an old TV for the monitor. So that's what you had. Like, nobody bought monitors. You used a TV for your monitor. And, my more sophisticated friend had a Mac. I remember her specifically having a Mac. And so I had to learn, there were all these codes for using your word processing software. And my sisters didn't use the computer. They had like an advanced typewriter. So there were like these modern versions of typewriters that you could use. And then I had like the big floppy disk that was this big
I remember those.
Saving my stuff. And I just...
this was in high school, right?
This was all in high school. Well, okay. I mean... We got it young. Like I'm the baby of the family. So I'd been playing with computers for a long time. We did basic programming in gifted and talented class. So it was just part of my life. It wasn't like something that really stood out. I was really into music. So I thought I was going to major in voice and English or computer science.
Okay.
And my dad sat me down and went through I knew I was cut off after graduation. So I knew a second I graduated, I got no money from him. And then we walked through, what does the life look like depending upon what you do. And I
love that.
Yeah. And how much money would you make? Like, how hard is it to get into show business? You'd probably be waitressing, things like that. And even if I did get into a musical show, I'd have to travel around the U.S. Like, that might be an ideal job, is actually getting in a touring company. And I just really didn't want that life. And the computers was really appealing to me. Computer science, I felt, gave me such a solid foundation. I don't know where I got this idea, but I just thought, if I major in computer science, I can do whatever I want to do after. I can go be a lawyer. I can go be in business. I can go be a doctor. And that other majors wouldn't give me as much freedom. So I really felt that it was it was not the highest paying upon graduation, but it was very high paying on graduation. and I also thought it was pretty recession proof because at that time there was a mild recession and both my sisters had been affected and struggled to get jobs after graduation. And
Do you remember around what time this was? What year?
well, I graduated high school in 1994.
Okay.
So this must have been like, I guess they're 4 years older than me. So like 89, 90.
Okay.
And so the job market was soft and it was like, well, what's kind of a guaranteed job? And I didn't want to go into, well, I wasn't sure I wanted to go into healthcare. And I just thought like computers are just going to be bigger and more important. And so I said, I'm studying computer science. And that's what I ended up doing.
That's great. You were thinking way ahead even at such a young age. I mean,
well, I did have the value of my sisters, seeing my sisters' experiences.
Did they do anything related as far as comp sci or anything like that? Or?
No, my one sister was studied to be an English teacher, and then she didn't like being an English teacher, and then she went into insurance.
Okay.
And my other sister has pretty much stayed in her field. She studied healthcare administration.
Okay.
So my mom was a nurse, my dad was an engineer, and so.
But Shana, all of you growing up in your household, pre-high school, were all of you very involved and into tech and computers, all three of you?
No.
Okay.
I would just like, I would say like, it was just a normal, like I did piano, I did dancing, I did like arts and crafts, I did computers half the time. Like it wasn't a special thing. It wasn't called out. But I did have a neighbor who, she had studied aerospace engineering and she had 5 children and she ended up programming for her husband's aerospace company. And my mother loved talking about her because she made so much money that she couldn't not work. And she had 5 children and she had a nanny with a master's degree. And it's funny, I just thought working from home seemed like amazing. So this was in 1997, right? And she worked from home. She worked from home full time, which is pretty much unheard of that many years ago.
Especially in that field.
Yeah. And I just thought that's the life. Like, I want that life. But then I actually never had a job that worked from home until I finally just quit working on contract like a year ago. So all those years, I never actually worked from home. I always had to drive to a building.
Well, until now too, due to COVID. Everyone had to learn to work from home.
Right.
So after high school, did you stay in Pittsburgh for college, or where did you have?
No, I went to University of Virginia, they had at the time I haven't tracked fully how computer science programs have changed, but at the time at Penn State, computer science wasn't in the engineering school, and at UVA it was in the engineering school. So I knew it would be a very rigorous program. And so that was very appealing to me. And then I thought if I drop out to Virginia is very strong in other majors. And so I thought I'm kind of safe if I decide I hate computer science, that I would be safe doing other things. And it's funny now because they actually allow you to get a BA in computer science. But when I went through, it was a full engineering program.
Wow. It's interesting. It reminds me, I went to Maryland here in college, University of Maryland, College Park, and I studied economics, and it was somewhat similar that the economics department you would think would be in the business school, but it wasn't. It was in the behavioral and social science school.
Interesting.
And I was like, why is that? That was very interesting. And what ended up happening, a lot of people went into econ to my major who couldn't cut it in comp sci. So that affected me in a bad way because all these comp sci majors, which is a much more difficult major, come into econ now, and they just messed the curve up completely. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
But as you know, there's a big difference between how you do in school and how you do in the real world.
Oh, of course.
So I feel like college does not prepare you at all for the real world, or like school doesn't, because what it takes to succeed professionally is not what it takes to get an A in a class.
I agree 100%.
And so it's this false sense of security that because you got A's, you're going to do great out professionally.
Yes, no, it's very true. I mean, I don't think what I learned in college I use now every day. I don't at all. But it's just, I even back then I saw it just as a diploma, as a paper to get my foot in the door and whatever I would do next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I felt my program was very, very rigorous, and it trained me to work extremely hard. I had never worked, I worked 24/7. I was in the lab. We had like a million problem sets. So now running the business, I'm at least kind of back to that life of like just working 20, always in sweats, always just working and focused on the work and the outcome. And I didn't really know computer science before that. I was at a big disadvantage. Especially I went with all these kids who were in Northern Virginia, and half the kids from Northern Virginia were from Thomas Jefferson, or was it Thomas Jefferson, the magnet school there. That's just incredible. And I felt like such a hick. Like I didn't know what was code and what wasn't code. I mean, that's how far behind I was than everybody else who really had been doing it for a long time.
Okay. And
so to me, it was just like, oh, physics, I took physics, I took biology, I'll do computer science. Like that sounds cool. And these other kids had really tracked it. And I was like, I didn't even have a computer.
Once you were there, did you like it, or how did you feel?
I had shock because UVA is a very southern school, and I grew up in Pittsburgh, which is got a real northern feel to it. And I think at my high school, I had grown up around the same people all the time. And, you knew your place in class. It was easy to be at the top of the class. And in high school, if you studied, you pretty much got the A. And here, I felt like my ass was handed to me like all the time. And everyone is good looking, and everyone is smart, and everyone is rich and beautiful. And I just felt like a very small fish in a big sea, and had to find my bearings. And it was very transformative, because it was just, this is the bar for what it takes to be an engineer, and if you can't hack it, then you can drop out. So in today's computer programming too is just so different, because, you got all these images and things to make it easy. And then it was really like, lines of code, and I don't know. And I didn't even have my own computer. I was telling my interns, I literally had to walk like really far to go to a computer lab to even email. Like, can they even imagine that? Like literally walking to a building just to get on email.
Yeah. Now it's on the phone.
And I did that for 2 years. Anytime you really wanted to do your schoolwork, it was either paper or you were walking to a building and waiting for an open computer. I'm sure they have no idea what that's like at all.
They don't understand. I did the same thing. I would have to go to a lab or go to the library.
Yeah.
So you got your bachelor's in comp sci from UVA, right?
Right.
And then after that, what happened?
So they had a lot of interviews the year, my senior year on campus. And so I actually got an offer. I remember by Thanksgiving, my senior year, I had a job offer in hand, and it was a great, offer. So I think I interviewed, had a couple final interviews with companies. So it was very exciting. I mean, I went into my senior before even Christmas of my senior year, I had a job offer. And it was in Alexandria, Virginia. It was a DoD contractor. And it was based in Alexandria, Virginia. And the project I worked on was they were redoing the software for a central control panel of the SH-60 helicopter. And we were doing a simulation of the software so that they could test it before it was actually in.
Okay.
So we were modeling it in C++, and then it was put into a EBT, some type of trainer. And then literally on the other floor, they were doing the embedded software. So that was pretty cool. That was my first job. And I left it because this was also at the time, 1998, of the .com explosion. And I didn't even know how websites worked, right? Like we weren't programming and that. And it just seemed like the cool thing to do. And so I left that company to go to a .com.
Okay. All in Northern Virginia, or did you have to relocate elsewhere for that?
I lived in Northern Virginia it always feels like longer, but I think it was like 10 years.
Okay.
I think I lived there from 1998 to 2007.
Okay.
2010. Yeah. Yeah. So I love Northern Virginia.
And then from that company, you said you went with another one, all still there in Northern Virginia?
Yeah. So I was living in Alexandria, Virginia. I took a job with a .com who, they I don't even know what they were building. They were trying to build like a Yahoo competitor. So I was working on a horoscope script, and it would just seem so stupid. And then I went back to a subcontractor of the first company and was working on testing the software. And then they won a contract for DoD PKI rollout. So for the whole Department of Defense was actually moving to PKI, and people actually had to get a card to plug in their certificates. And we were the company responsible for building the whole platform. And that was pretty interesting for me. And then at that time, I started to get my master's at night at George Mason in systems engineering.
Was that a requirement, or was that just something you wanted to do, pursue the master's?
I was just obsessed with like climbing a ladder and,
Corporate ladder.
In my mind, I had always wanted to be like a vice president. I was like, how do I get to be a vice president?
Well, that was the goal back then.
Yeah, it was like, so I graduated and I'm like, I want to be a vice president. And I originally, because my father had his MBA, I was like dead set on getting an MBA from a top program. So I did everything. I ran a volunteer group. I was teaching aerobics. I was volunteering for extra work at work. Anything I could do to make myself very competitive to like go be a Harvard MBA or go to Stanford. And then I took the GMATs, and then I started like crying, and I couldn't. It's kind of, it's like your body telling you that something's wrong. And honestly, I just at the time wasn't sure that the cost of getting an MBA was worth the value. And I graduated college with $20,000 in debt. And that's not that much. And I was making $50,000 when I graduated, which was a lot of money at the time. And, that payment just felt like a lot. And I couldn't imagine, 10 times that. Right. And what a lifetime impact that would have on me. And I also was kind of predicting that in the future in engineering, they're not hiring MBAs, they're hiring kind of a systems engineer, or they started to come out with these masters in engineering. And I also contemplated not getting a master's degree, and my mother went like insane on me and insisted I get my master's degree. So I kind of did the best of all worlds, and I got my degree at Mason, so systems engineering and computer-based systems, and I did it at night. And I think it was almost 100% paid for by the companies I worked for.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was a professor there who recruited me to work for the Aerospace Corporation. So he was like, oh, you're a great student. Why don't you apply for a job at the Aerospace Corporation? And I'm not that into I shouldn't say I'm not into cybersecurity. I wasn't into like preventative cybersecurity, those types of products. And so I thought the Aerospace Corporation just seemed like an absolute dream and very technological, where you can work very mission focused, or you can solve these very hard problems. They have a lot of PhDs doing research there. And so that was my first step into the Intel community.
After you finish your master's?
I'm trying to think if I finished my master's there or not. I don't remember the exact timeline, but yeah, I was working on my master's and then was recruited.
So back then, Shana, you didn't have to commit to your employer who was paying for this master a certain number of years, or it wasn't that?
Yeah, I'm sure, but maybe I paid it. Sometimes when it's like $5,000, a company's like, all right, well, that's your signing bonus.
Okay.
Like we do that too. We've been like, don't worry, we'll pay off that debt because we'd rather have you now.
Sure. Okay.
So I don't remember that. I've never been that focused on like making sure everything lines up perfectly. I'm just kind of that gut risk taker who moves forward and says like, this sounds good. I got to do this.
Yeah, just go for it.
And I really knew that I wasn't into PKI at the time, and this aerospace company just seemed amazing.
After that, you went to another government contract, or what happened after the aerospace company?
So I loved aerospace, and the management there was amazing. But the problem I had with the company and working overall there was, they're really focused on launching satellites. And so there's tons and tons of aerospace engineers. I'm sure that's very shocking. And to build a satellite is very, very different than writing software. Most software is developed very quickly. The software that you put on a satellite or the software that you put on an airplane is extremely slow, tested an extreme amount. But most other software is not like that in that category. And that's the software I'm interested in work on. So a lot of the aerospace engineers were doing a very waterfall, slow approach to building the software that was actually hurting their own outcomes for what they wanted. And they didn't understand, it was like two different languages. They didn't understand the contractors they hired who were doing the software. And so it felt kind of like I was just pointing out the obvious, like getting paid to show up and point out like the most obvious things in the work, like to just repeat what the contractor had said back to the government. And I just thought, this isn't my home forever. Like, and it was hard to leave because I loved the community and the company and how I was treated. But it was also at this time that I thought, I want to start my own business. So I got the bug to, I finally was kind of like, you know what? I'm tired of reporting to someone else, and there's money to be made, and, we can do a better job, and I can build something. And so I left to go to a small business where, led by an entrepreneur, and that was kind of my first step out of there. And that's how I ended up. That company was based in Arlington, but did work up at Fort Meade.
Okay.
And then after I left that one, I went to an even smaller, like 4-person company. Because again, I didn't care about risk, right? I was just like,
Sure.
oh, well, this job sounds so cool and sounds great. So I went and I was like, I've never worked at Fort Meade, so let me take a job up there. And that's where I've ended up.
So that's what brought you to the Baltimore area.
What brought me to Baltimore? So when I showed up at work, and in the second week of work, I met my husband. So my husband was a government person.
Is this this is with the aerospace or no?
No.
Okay.
This is with a very small company.
Okay, after that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on a very, very big contract. So Northrop Grumman was the prime, and we were a tiny sub. And my husband was the government lead. And so we like met in the break room. I think we saw each other in the cubes, and it was like instant dream sequence out of a movie where we were basically like, you. And so our first date was in DC. I was still living in Washington. I moved to Washington, DC at this point. And
he was in Baltimore, right?
He was in Baltimore.
Okay.
And I was like, it's really important, I do not like Maryland. I do not like Baltimore. I was such a Virginia girl, like the most snobby Virginia girl ever. And he showed me, he was renovating his house in Federal Hill, which is very charming and fun. And I was still like, okay, I don't like Federal Hill, but it's closer to work. And then by the time the house was done, I was very ensconced with it, and then had my baby there. And so now we're a Baltimore family.
Okay.
And
wow.
I don't see us moving. And it's a big part of our company as well, that we're a Baltimore family, a Baltimore company. And I don't see us moving really till our kids graduate.
You're a Hubzone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a big, okay.
Yeah, so that was dumb luck that the house he had bought happened to be in a Hubzone.
Oh, wow. That was lucky.
It was dumb. What happened is he renovated the house and we were getting a new loan.
Okay.
And my friend's like, well, you're kind of close to this area. And lo and behold, I looked and we were a Hubzone.
And this is while you're trying to form and get the startup up, right?
Yeah,
wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah. So I applied before we even ran payroll.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Nyla started from that house.
Yes.
Is that where it all started? Okay.
Yeah, 1125 Hanover.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. You can walk past it if the Orioles ever play again. Yeah.
Okay. So then, Nyla, when you first started it, were you thinking, okay, we're going to go after this business. This is what we're going to. So maybe you can explain to the audience what Nyla does.
Sure. Nyla is a government contractor, and we specialize in software engineering, systems engineering, and data science services for the federal government, particularly focused on the DoD and the intelligence community. Okay. So when I started, my goal was just to work for myself, to get out from under And all these people were like, you're going to be great. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to come work for you. And then like no one comes and works for you in the beginning. And no one in business knows who you are because you've been so focused on engineering. So I had this, even though I had, presumptively assumed I would be great at business, I didn't know that network. I didn't know how it worked. I didn't know what a reps and certs was. I didn't know any of these things. And I had a 1-year-old, and I'm learning, and then I'm trying to get pregnant again. And I'm like,
Oh, wow.
You're working as an engineer on contract. You're trying to recruit people. You're trying to figure out even how to format the resume and upload it so that, you can consider it, and getting a loan so that you can actually afford to hire someone, because you have to pay them like 2 months before you actually get paid, and these people make a lot of money, so it's actually a significant loan. So really just figuring out all of that. So my first step was just figuring it out so that I could get paid consistently, and then trying to grow it into this vision. I think I always had a pretty clear vision of what I wanted the company to be like, but it was harder to get it started and to get others bought in. When you start out, you're unproven, right? Like no one knew who I was. There's a bunch of other people all running around with one-person companies. So you have to prove yourself over time, really, with the consistency of your story and your execution.
So at this time, your husband was not with Nyla. He was still
That's right.
working. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He likes to, well, I don't know if he says he played Mr. Mom because he was government. He had all this leave built up. So anytime the kid was sick, any doctor appointment,
Okay.
he had to take off because his income was going to remain. And his job wasn't risky. And I was doing a relatively risky thing. And so he was also building up his professional resume so that when he joined Nyla, he was even more valuable. So he did a couple jobs as a government person that really put the polish on him and made him even more valuable to leave. So yeah, I was kind of annoyed that he wasn't there like emotionally with me in the beginning and Ty, but now it's been 3 years. Has it been 3 years? I don't know, but he joined on April 1st.
So he's been 3 years with the company. When was Nyla?
Full-time.
Okay. When was Nyla founded? Do you remember?
So I got the paperwork in 2013.
Okay.
And then it took me 6 months to finally tell my boss I wanted to leave. And then it was some back and forth. And then it took, another 6 months. And then it was snow. So my security clearance hadn't processed. And so it took 1 whole year before I actually started as myself. And then in government contracting, sometimes your company needs a clearance as well. So it took 1.5 years for my company to get a clearance. And then I could be an official subcontractor. So it was 2.5 years from the day I got the paperwork to the day I was like a true subcontractor with my main customer.
So during this time, is the company making any revenue? Is anything coming in or?
Yeah, because I'm working on contract.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm working every day, like as a 1099 on contract.
Okay.
And then I actually found an employee and was able to place him on an unclassified job. And so that was my first employee. He was working for a startup, a cybersecurity startup. So he was doing like some reverse engineering.
Okay, I see. Nyla, is there a meaning behind the name? Is there anything to that name?
Yeah, so Nyla is my mother's name. It's her first name.
Ah, so you named it after your mother.
Yeah, well, it's hard to name a business overall. And I really kind of wanted to name it after my last name. But, when you're married, it's like your husband's last name. And, well, what happens if that, I wanted it to be personal. And my mom was fierce and bold. And right before I started, I was getting kind of scared. Like, what am I doing? Why do I think I can do this? And so it's kind of a reminder of who do I want the company to be like? How are we going to treat people as well? Like, what's really important. And she really always wanted the best for people. And she wanted people to rise up kind of to their potential as well. So, which of course I inherited, is kind of making sure people we're investing in them, and that they're investing in themselves and really growing, and that they're being well cared for.
And she's still in Pittsburgh, right?
No, sorry. She passed away when I was
I'm sorry.
30.
That.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So she passed away when I was 30.
Okay. I'm curious, Shana, because you have three sisters, and it seems like you're the only one who sort of went that entrepreneurial route. Do you think you guys grew up in the same household, same father, same mom? Is there something in you think that sort of was different compared to your two older siblings?
Well, one, I have two older sisters, and my oldest sister actually did start a business, and she had a
Oh,
business for a long time. She was making window treatments and custom like fabrics for people. So I got to see her do that. I probably should have paid attention to how many hours it was and how hard it was. But my parents weren't very entrepreneurial. I did have my grandfather had started a meat market, but I didn't really know my grandfather. This is in North Dakota. And so my Uncle Kenny took it over, and I know that Uncle Kenny did well. But my parents played it safe. You know, my dad was an engineer, and he stayed an engineer, and my mother was a nurse, and they both didn't love their professions, but they never changed.
okay.
And I think for me, I'm very comfortable being in charge. I like being in charge. Doesn't faze me doing a whole amount of, so the idea of leadership or just telling everyone what to do. And I also have it was kind of like to a bubbling point where I couldn't take it anymore, that it was clear to me that I was not going to wait for some company or some person to anoint me at some level, that was not what I wanted, that I didn't want to jump through some set of hoops that someone else had defined and wait for that. And so it was kind of like I couldn't take it anymore. And the value of working for that really small company before I did it was that kind of gave me no fear, right? Because I wasn't working for a big company with lots of protection and lots of different opportunities. And so I kind of thought, all right, well, you know, I can at least try this. And it was also low risk. If I was a mess up, you know, I wasn't going to really lose money. You're still going to get paid. And so the big risk is just how long before you find a job as an employee.
It seems like a lot of your decisions, even from high school, looking into what you wanted to go into and major, have always been calculated risk that seemed to play out and work to your favor.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I think I always felt like, I think engineers are relatively safe people. You know, they're not heavily entrepreneurial in general. But yeah, I think like, well, what's the worst that could happen? Right? Like I could find a job. How long will it take me to find a job? Versus, you know, in olden days, you had to like buy a storefront and buy all this product,
Yes.
and then take out this huge loan. So yeah, going and getting a top MBA would have actually been a bigger risk than doing what I did and starting the business.
Yeah. Where did VitalUP marketing come into play there?
So that's a great question.
That was the second one, right? That was
Yeah.
okay.
It's only a year and a half old. So it's really important to me that Nyla is a Hubzone. So it just so happened that we happen to be a Hubzone company, and the Hubzone requirements are that 35% of your employees have to live in a Hubzone, and your primary office has to be located in a Hubzone as well. Excuse me. Nyla's a Hubzone, and the more I studied the Hubzone program and the more I became enamored of Baltimore, I think the Hubzone program is probably an amazing set-aside program, because 3% of all government contracting dollars are supposed to go to a Hubzone. They have a goal. It's not a requirement, but it's a goal. And the Hubzone program is one that's truly focused on revitalizing more economically depressed communities, because you have to hire from there, you have to invest in there. And so I think it means a lot to me to keep it going. And one way we started was that a lot of our overhead was, a lot of the overhead support we have lives in a Hubzone. And so I was always tracking these numbers. And then it was like, well, what are we going to do when we get pretty large? And not everyone who is a software engineer is going to live in a hub zone. So how do we handle our numbers, and how do we remain a hub zone? And I thought, well, I need a business line that I can have where people might hire. Nyla could have people that they hire that lives in a hub zone. And at the time, I started to get better at marketing, and I met my VitalUP business partner, Kevin, who was working on the Nyla marketing. And I basically wrote him this long email. And I don't even know Kevin that well. We've met in person like 3 times.
But he was
But
working with Nyla at that point, right?
as
Or,
a contractor,
or just as a
yeah.
contractor? Okay.
Yeah. But he was a mechanical engineer who had spent his free time building his own blog and website that ended up like replacing his income. So in 3 years, it became profitable from affiliate links.
Wow.
And it's funny because he's so humble, and he has like no pictures of him on the website at all because it's about dogs.
Okay.
And so we started having some marketing clients. So I thought we could help people with their social media. We could help them with their SEO, offload some tasks. And I interviewed a couple people to see, is this a viable thing? And we got a couple clients, and we started having these clients through Nyla. And then it was really weird branding to be like, well, we do marketing, but you have this government contracting website, and Nyla is a very, like, it looks like a government contracting website. Like it's hip and cool, but it's not that hip, and so it just seemed weird, and it also didn't seem fair to Kevin, who was really the who does the bulk of the work, right? So I bring in the sales, I'm the strategy for people, I'm the artistic vision one, but he does a lot of the technical work as well. And so Kevin Kevin took a leap of faith, and we started a business together, 50-50.
Did you find it very easy to convert when you were there with your government contracting clients, and out of nowhere they're marketing and branding, and they're like, okay, I wasn't expecting this?
Well, I have always been, I think, a more creative engineer.
Okay.
I put a spin on things. I'm good at drawing pictures and clarifying how things need to be. I'm also better. I'm very comfortable with tools than, say, people who sometimes do strictly communications, right? So if you're typically working with so I'm very comfortable with automation. So I kind of cover the whole waterfront. So one of the things that makes it easier for me to do sales for the digital marketing company is I'm already running a business on the side, Nyla, and I understand all of these pain points, right? Like I'm literally living through these exact same pain points, and I'm figuring it out kind of in Nyla myself. And then, okay, well, it's easy for me to tell you, oh, you could do this, right? Or like this could solve your problem. And I've been there making these trade-offs of like, do you do it internally? Do you do it yourself? Do you hire an intern? Do you hire, like who do you hire? And then you hire somebody and then it's terrible. So I've been through all of that. I think it makes it a very strong sale because I can just be like, look at your website and give you tips. And I'm not, I'm in it for a long relationship.
Sure.
And I want what's best for you, the client. So it's not really a hard sale for me. It's like, take it or leave it. This is my advice, which gives me, because I'm not so focused on money, it gives me freedom to just tell you kind of what I think is really the truth, whether you want to pay for it from me or not. You at least know you have a trusted partner who's going to give you good advice.
Sure. And that's how you found the first few clients for VitalUP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Most of the clients. Yeah. We actually where the shoemakers have no shoes. We have all of our blogs sitting ready to be posted. We're not on top of our social media for VitalUP either. So we're getting everyone else's social media going, but not our own.
Hey, it's okay. You're focusing on your clients, right?
Yeah.
So Kevin, is that your other partner there, you said?
Yeah.
Did he end up leaving where he was and now he's
so
okay.
he had dwindled down to part-time working as a mechanical engineer, and now he's full-time with VitalUP.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. That's good.
Yeah.
What would you say, Shana, that motivates you or drives you?
I think genuinely I like what I'm doing. So it's finally to the point that I always felt like I would be good at this, at kind of being in charge and doing all of it. And so it's finally kind of to a point where it doesn't really feel like work. Um, Sometimes it's a drag that it's so long, but a lot of times I'll wake up on Saturday morning and I'll have like a burst of creativity of what should we do? And here's the things, and I'll review products and come up with all these. So like people, I hope I don't tell my employees that they have to work on a Saturday, but they probably get like a barrage of stuff from me on Saturday mornings of, what we should do. And I like creating things, and I like people using the stuff that we create and being happy with the outcomes. And I like people, living a great life. And I'm very motivated to work on these government systems. I believe in what we're doing. So I believe essentially in the mission. I believe in the mission of what we are hired to build, versus like we're not peddling advertising to people, right? Like we're not trying to I guess I got to edit that. We're not because, but I think I just really believe in the problems that we're solving. And it's exciting to put together a team of like-minded people and to see this vision come for life. So I kind of believe that we could create this darling government contracting company that is really a shining star to show that things can be done better, faster, with higher, better outcomes.
Okay.
Versus just like same old,
Yeah. Different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far in your business career, and I know you have a long road ahead of you still, what have you been the most proud of thus far?
I think I'm really proud of the service that we provide, that we have really built in. Whether people were into it or not, we have really always focused on philanthropy, and not just from money. So we give all of our employees 8 hours a year to volunteer. Our part-time employees get 4 hours. We are always sharing activities where they can volunteer. We really celebrate volunteering. So it's not just volunteering with money, but volunteering with your time. And then I think I've been really proud that in high tech, we are a very diverse company, both racially, economically, and gender. So we are a much higher diverse company. And I think that's a huge part because we are not doing kind of the standard, everything we do is different. So like most people do a golf tournament as a fundraiser, and we did a chili cook-off. A chili cook-off is something that everyone can participate in, right? You can even bring your children. There wasn't $1,000 worth of equipment required before you can attend. Most people have had chili in their life before or made it. And then when we couldn't do the chili cook-off the one year, we did a pie in the face. So it was which exec gets a pie in the face. And
how many times did you get hit?
Just once.
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
But it was very common. Oh, it was it was like raise money to see which one gets it.
Okay.
So at the last minute, someone bid against Amanda. So Amanda got to put the pie in my face, and the joy in her from that picture of like putting the pie in my face was so funny. So we'll have to figure out what we can do virtually again this year, since we probably won't do a chili cook-off again this year. So we're gonna have to fix. So we do things that are different. A lot of people kind of follow the same mold where they invite people out for a beer. We are gonna have like an open outdoor yoga offering.
Okay.
So I think that has led to attracting a more diverse crew. So, we're pretty gender neutral. Our messaging is colorful. And so it's not attracting it's not turning off people as well, right? Like some messaging is very exclusionary and people aren't aware how exclusionary their messaging is.
I agree. I'm glad you mentioned diversity. And in the tech world, there is very little diversity in both minority, women, or other race. Why do you think that is?
I think that is because there is such a strong stereotype, and it goes back to I don't have the exact quote, but someone had decided, I don't know if it was in the 70s, of this is a exact stereo. You know, it used to be women were the programmers. Literally, women were sitting there doing the math, right, for all of the equations that were needed, and then they ended up being the people who wrote the programs, waited, like sit there and put it in put it in and waited for their turn on the big computers. And somewhere along the line, someone decided that it was like a male field and a very certain stereotype. And so you don't see, so the stereotype is very strong, that it's this specific nerdy, I'm not going to get into describing what the stereotype is, but I, who likes all different things, didn't feel comfortable or welcome, right? You're not part of the group. So if the group is all like into one thing and talking about you, I was repeatedly excluded, or like, I don't make sense. No one wants to talk to me. And then it starts to become like, well, maybe they're right. Like, maybe I'm not good, maybe I don't know this. And so you'll see a lot of women. And then, like, for example, the one commercial company I worked at, they literally would just stay late and play video games, right? And I wanted to go to the gym. I am not into video games. I have nothing against people,
Sure.
but they used the servers at work to like optimize the video game. So they would stay late. Were they higher performers? No, but it was this focus on hours and being there. And another example is I worked at a company and they were going to institute like giving 110%, and they wanted everyone to work 44 hours. And I said, well, what you measure is what you get. So you're going to get those 44 hours. Doesn't mean it's going to be higher quality, better relationships with people. And then most women who are working, and if they have children, they want to get out of the office as fast as possible. So it's still this mentality, and maybe it's going to go away entirely, like due to COVID, but this fake mentality of you have to be in the office all the time and you're the highest performer because you're there. But you're shooting the shit, right? Like, you're dragging these meetings out that have no value.
Especially in tech, they have what, ping pong tables, they have all these things, video games, and
yeah,
being efficient with your time.
Yeah. And like, one example for me was one of the reasons I didn't like the commercial company. I interviewed with 2 commercial companies and they were filthy, disgusting offices. Like, it looked like a frat house. And it was literally like there was dog pee on the floor. They let people write on the walls. It was gross. It was so gross. And like, one guy came to work in bike shorts.
Please
And
tell me he changed.
no. And
the whole day in bike shorts?
Yeah. And it was so me showing up wearing, like, I'm into nice clothes. Like, I wanted to look, I was wearing Ann Taylor. I felt very sophisticated. And I just I looked like a business person, right? Like,
Yes.
They're wearing t-shirts and I'm like cleaning off my desk. And that alone made me feel very uncomfortable. It didn't push me out or make me stop. But yeah, I just think that you need to see, like, just like, I don't know if I would have studied computer science if I hadn't seen a woman who I wanted to be like, right? I knew the neighbor and I thought, that's an awesome life and I want to be like that. That seems really great to me. And I think it's hard if you don't see that representation, and it's hard to have those microaggressions against you over and over and over again, and you just get tired of it. But I think the thing I like about government contracting is they have such a focus on equity for a long time. So and I think the government has a better work-life balance. So I've been in very, very technical meetings and it's all women, all female engineers. And there's a lot of very powerful women in government contracting who, not as many women own their own business, but there's a lot of senior vice presidents, director level, and so it's much more equitable, and it doesn't feel, oh, like I can't understand that you're a woman here. It's just, it's normal. And that it's like, there's not this long delay before people start working with me, or they finally understand that's what coming out of my mouth is technical and appropriate. So like I used to have, when I was younger, people like literally like trying to reconcile like this woman in a dress with like blonde put back hair is like talking to them about like the architecture changes that need to be made. And they're like, what? So, yeah, I like that. I'm working.
Uh-huh.
I like that it's like a different era, but something's still wrong because there's still not enough women in engineering.
That was my next question. Was it always like that as far as back then when you started in this industry, that you sat at the table and there was plenty of women there, or have you seen the change?
No, there's almost never, it's very rare that there's women on the software engineering team. It seems to be that there's plenty of women. There's something still really broken and wrong, because there's a lot of women who major in math. There's a lot of female data scientists, which is awesome because data science is such a high paying job. But there's something still really bad in the water, because there's not even close to like 30 or 50% of the women majoring in computer science, where, you know, in doctors and lawyers, it's equal now, right?
Okay.
So there's some still thing that is such a strong turnoff. And I think it's like these inherent biases that people have to check and kind of overcome, that, you know, I have felt myself.
I see. Now, the team and surrounding yourself with the right people is extremely important. How many people do you have in your organization, on both or whichever one you want to focus on? How do you find them actually?
Well, it started, you know, I met my husband at work, and he is a big partner at Nyla. He's our chief information officer. He's our chief financial officer. But, you know, we actually worked together. So I knew that he was good at work. And I knew that he was highly sought after, like that he was extremely good at work. And so him just even deciding to partner with me, because he didn't have to, right? He could still go and be a director at some big company.
How is that,
But
by the way, that relationship with a husband and wife and with the
it's
business?
good. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
gonna, we're a fiery couple. So, and I'm sensitive to him talking over me, right? Like I get really mad, and I get really mad if he repeats what I say, because I feel like he's mansplaining. So it's like my sensor is so sensitive. So, you know, we have our spats, but
That's
we
normal.
yeah, we're very
Yeah.
committed to the same outcomes, and we're both excited. And I like it because it's such a big part of my life, and so it's part of his life, and he's so good at work. So Amanda O'Donoghue is my number 2. She's our chief experience officer, and I met her through a mom's Facebook group. Members of our executive team, they actually came to us, which was really wild to me and flattering, because they could have gone anywhere that they wanted. And so that was pretty amazing that they had their choice of where they wanted to work, but they thought that Nyla would be a great option for them.
That's good. What advice would you give, Shana, someone starting off in the business?
Well, I got to create this graphic, but I think the number one thing you need to know is that the number of hours you have to work is going to go through the roof, and the amount of money you're going to make is going to go down significantly. So it's like, you know, if you're an employee, it's like, oh, you work some hours, and right. But
Yeah.
when you start a business, okay, let me open that. You just are going to work so much. And I think the most important thing is to know that you just have to keep persevering. I think it's, you know, it's any good thing that's worthwhile is hard and is going to challenge you and going to have you grow. It's a lot like being a parent. I think it's a lot of highs, a lot of lows, a lot of like, you don't even know who you were before this. So I think, you know, to be successful, you just really have to keep at it. it's really consistency. And I think people get tired. It's hard to keep at it. It's like being on a healthy diet all the time.
Some people end up quitting and giving up.
Yeah. And I don't blame them, because that might be like, it's not worth that to me, right? The trade-off or the potential that someday I'll make, if you're in it just for the money, there's other probably more fun ways to make money.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Where do you see the next 5 years for you in the business? What's the vision?
I'm hoping we continue to expand and double in size, that our reputation, that we continue to, I'm hoping that Nyla over the next 5 years continues to grow as a small business and becomes the premier small business of choice. I'm also hoping we expand into commercial work. That's a big goal of mine that I haven't really ticked away at, but we just received our commercially owned business, woman-owned business contracting certificate for commercial work. So really exploring what that looks like. And I hope—
Congrats on that.
Oh, thanks. And then I had to prove that I was a woman and, and that I really run the company.
But I'm sure that's going to open other avenues for you.
Yeah, I hope so. And then I hope that we develop more apps and more products. So I hope that we are able to take greater ownership of projects and efforts where it's like Nyla built that or VitalUP built that. And that we continue to really be a positive force, both for our clients and for the community. So, that's my real goal, for that Nyla serves the employees well, that Nyla serves its clients well, and that we are focused on serving our community as well.
That's awesome. I know you're busy running 2 companies, having a family and everything else, but what do you like to do in your free time for fun?
I'm very active, so I like doing yoga a lot. That's been my my big passion over the last year. I love taking my kids to their lessons, and my son plays piano, and he and I have been playing duets together. So that's been great joy, and probably just getting to go on a date with my husband.
That never happens. Not much.
Especially during COVID. So normally each year we go away on a week trip that's just the 2 of us, which is pretty amazing. But not this year due to COVID.
Where'd you go last year? We do the same thing. We try to dedicate 1 week, just me and my wife. So lastly, Shana, where can everyone find you as far as, social media? As we were talking before we started, you're going to be starting something yourself as well, a podcast. If you want to share with the audience, websites, social media handles, and where can they find you?
Sure. For business, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm probably most active on LinkedIn. Just my name, Shana Cosgrove. Hopefully should come up. I'm in a blue dress. And I do have my own website, shanacosgrove.com. So some of the stuff is on there. It's not as refreshed as heavily, but you can check me out there. Very accessible. So yeah, just reach out, send me a note.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Please don't forget to review, put in comments, and until next time. Bye.
Bye, Otto. Thanks.
Bye.